The changes in the format and rules have already tripped up a few drivers in the very first round, but there is still plenty of time to adapt to it if they want to have a shot at the crown this season. However, the modern, smooth pavement of the Nürburgring's GP course gives way to Sebring's notoriously rough surface. Will their worries be less about the other cars on track and more about the track itself? Let's find out as we get ready to watch round 2 of the PRL Sportscar series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. With both Sebring recently holding its real-world 12-hour event and iRacing its virtual version, most will be plenty familiar with the circuit. But just in case we have viewers hopping in for the first time, let's head to our track guide. Welcome to Sebring International Raceway. Home to the 12 Hours of Sebring, one of the most grueling tests in endurance racing, this is a track which has earned a fearsome reputation among drivers. The circuit itself is located on the southeastern edge of the city of Sebring, Florida, and was built out of Hendricks Army Airfield shortly after World War II. 3 layouts are currently in use, ranging from 1.7 to 3.7 miles in length. The longest course, which is perhaps the most well-known with it being the one used for the famed endurance race, shockingly still contains portions of the original airfield surface. It's this aspect which has become a signature feature of the track, making it extremely bumpy for racing. Sunset Bend in particular nearly shakes cars apart while they attempt to navigate the high-speed 180-degree corner. As you'd expect for the side of an airfield, there's nearly no elevation change over the course of a lap, but many of the curves are dramatically tall and unforgiving, daring drivers to glance them yet not hit them directly. Thankfully, places to pass are plentiful, including spots like the Hairpin and Cunningham. However, the many fast, sweeping turns creates a dilemma for car setup, since a vehicle that's made too stiff could wind up bottoming out on the onerous bumps. In the end, if you have the wherewithal to withstand the track's rough nature, you're likely to fare well. And since Florida fans almost always show up in huge numbers to witness this test of car and driver, you'll have plenty to impress at this legendary North American road course. Well, DJ, as we can clearly see, it's going to be hard to see. So what's it going to be like with the prototypes and the GTE cars trying to circulate around this place amongst each other in the pitch black?
Well, Joe, Sebring is one of those tracks that doesn't have a lot of ambient light when it is dark, doesn't have a lot of those spotlights that shine down, so drivers are going to have to be relying on their headlights tonight. They're good headlights in both the GTEs and the LMP2s, but it's going to be very, very tricky for these LMP2s. The closing speeds, specifically through Sector 2 on this circuit, they've got to be very, very careful and make sure they're checking their relatives. Traffic management is going to be the main key for everybody tonight. As is always the case at Sebring, we're going to see some good drafting going back down the back straightaway on the Ullman Straight. Maybe a good passing opportunity into Sunset, and certainly a good ability to fight back into Turn 1. We can also see coming out of the Gurney Bend and down into the Hairpin, that's always a decent opportunity to pass in both classes. The problem being is going down into that Hairpin, it really is a one path, a one groove corner, so there's not a lot of side-by-side you can do. From there on out, it's all about just managing the gap and managing the traffic around you, trying to steer clear, trying to be open, and then setting it up on that corner right before the Ullman Straight, the Le Mans Bend. It is one of the most crucial corners. If you get a good exit out of there, it'll set you up to be able to move forward, but if you get that corner wrong, you will be a sitting duck.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that when we get to the qualifying, which is beginning in just a moment. So why don't we take a short break to mention that today's race is brought to you by SimMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring everyone together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. Find out how you can bridge the gap between virtual and real motorsports at SIMMSA.net.
The PRL Sportscar Series is also brought to you by NinjaTrader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance.
Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. So as we glance at the two drivers' championships, of course, starting with the prototypes here up at the top of them, you've got Mauricio Cuero leading the way by about 5 points over Nunez, with only a point separating Nunez and Duino. Of course, then when you get back to Leighton, he's about 2 spots back, and then 3 more points back to get to Dunnigan, who sits in 5th. So the drivers are still tight with it only being 1 round in, but the bonus points, remember, can fiddle with that. So don't be surprised if someone manages to jump somebody else, even though they haven't finished higher than them. Let's take a look at the GTE standings. We have Don Squirek with the victory, and Michael Ross. You can see those bonus points. I was talking about him. He's only 3 points back compared to what the 5 we had with Nunez and Cuero. And then yet again, behind them, it stays pretty tight with a 4-point gap between Russo and O'Donnell lines, and then 1 between Cope and O'Donnell lines. We'll get to take a look at Cope and his rig a little bit later, but we'll talk about that after we go through the teams championships. DJ? Oh, excuse me. No, we do not have teams tonight, so let's head over to the race details instead.
Well, in those race details, Joe, we are on the second of 10 rounds in this PRL Sports Car Series. The cars drivers are going to be taken out on track right now. Those are the Dallara P17s, the Dallara LMP2s, and then a multitude of GTE cars. Right now, seeing the Porsches, BMWs, Ferraris, and Ford out on track right now, so a good smattering, also a Corvette thrown in there. The race distance will be 45 minutes. Before that, there is a 10-minute solo car qualifying session where drivers will have 4 laps to try to put in their best time. It is an open setup, so everybody will be able to kind of tweak and tune their cars as they see. Now, this is important this year. They have lowered those incident limits like we talked about last time. You get a drive-through at only 10 incident points. That's very easy to come up on, and you are disqualified at 15. And Joe, as you were mentioning, those bonus points getting very, very crucial as we go through it. We have a bonus point for fastest lap, a bonus point for pole, and a bonus point for clean driving if you're able to get 3 incidents or less.
All right, we've got qualifying underway. We're still waiting for the first times to come in. It takes a bit to get around here, so I'm actually kind of wondering if we'll see some drivers unable to put all 4 of their qualifying laps in that they are allowed to run. We're looking at Paulo Munoz here briefly as the 3-2-1 comes across the line. After he swings it out of Sunset Bend, what's his first time going to be? Takes a bit to get there as it's a ways down the straight, 46.986. And that will at least put him up on the board, but he is unfortunately among the slower of those who have set a time. Looks like Don Squirek is fast right out the boxes. He holds the provisional pole, but not for long. Ross goes quicker than him on his first lap.
Yeah, Michael Ross, one of the standouts from last season, doing a good job to come back here. He's got about 2 tenths over Squirek. We watch here as Janae crosses over the line. That's going to place him in 6th, so a good run for the Porsche driver. Here comes Arsenault, the Canadian, down off of that Ullman straight, lining up for Sunsets. He is in one of the BMWs looking to set a time and get himself on the board.
So Arsenault comes out of the final corner, yet to set a time. Now let's see if the 925 is going to be quick here on the first time of asking. Again, we think they might only get 3 laps instead of their usual 4. It's a 56.7. That'll put him in 12th place, so he's got some work to do as he's well towards the latter half of the pack for the time being. 5 minutes left already. They get 10 minutes in this qualifying. That tells you how long, and Arsenault has only put a single lap in so far.
Yeah, he's really going to want to be on it. Here comes Kwok Nin, the Texan, one of the new drivers to the series. The only other Ford driver besides Michael Ross. He's going to come across the line with a 59.749. That is not a good time for Kwok Nin there. He is going to want to try to do better here. But here comes Cuero, your current pole sitter in LMP2.
And he actually goes faster. So looks like he's increased his gap to nearly half a second. Christian Eisler does go quicker as well, but only has it to 4/10. Paulo Munoz up to third, jumping Jeffrey Ooms, and only 13 thousandths away from Christian. So it's tight for that second spot on the front row.
It very much is. There's Ben Lafter coming across the line. He's currently 8th with a 47.1. But back to those GTEs. Here comes Michael Plord now as he crosses over the line. He's able to improve with a 57.1, 2, 3. But that's going to bump him up 3 positions into the order. Mannion now coming across the line. Good improvement from him as well, about 8/10 up.
What about Rafael Russo? He was the front runner last time as he crosses. Looks like a 55 flat, and that will put him into second place. So our third place finisher is looking like he's got good qualifying here, at least for the first part of this Q session. Thomas Cope is up next. He's one of those drivers that we have an onboard here with today. We'll check on that in a bit. Oh, but this second lap did not count for him, and he's still in 6th.
Yeah, he's going to want to be moving up, as I definitely think that the farther up you are, the better you're going to be. Here's Cervantes looking like he is done, at least for the moment. Lavadier now coming through Sunset. It is so bumpy through there, Joe, just trying to get the power on at the right point, and especially in the darkness, not having those braking partners really, really hurts. Looks like Lavadier not able to improve.
Second place in the LMP2s. It has 3 cars within a 1/10 of a second. It is incredibly tight there. This is Horatio Calquin. Looks like that lap actually, whoa, and he now jumps up to second, then it loses it immediately as Christian Eisler goes faster. My goodness. So in just a few moments, Duino gets shuffled down as Jeffrey Ooms goes slightly quicker but stays in P6. Duino's up next. He doesn't improve. My goodness.
It is just very tight to find any sort of time here. Good run for Eisler, though. He was quick in practice. That's a good improvement there for Jennifer McDonald, the Midwest driver. She's going to jump up a little bit. Luis Pime Jr. across the line in 4th.
And Rafael Russo, who is second and only 22 thousandths behind our pole sitter, comes around Sunset Bend now, the 22. Is this going to be it for him to be able to take the pole away? Because Ross is not out there right now. No, he goes a 10th slower, and he doesn't have enough time to get around for another lap.
I think Raphael's going to be kicking himself after that. James David able to cross the line, but not able to go faster. Here comes Tiansai Layton. He's currently sat back in 8th place. He's going to be able to improve by about 0.2 of a second. That will bump him up ever so slightly. Thomas Cope now coming to the line, about a 10.5 improvement.
That'll get him into 5th from his previous 7th. Lou Barreto across the line as Arsenault follows him, sitting in 15th, but his first lap is still the quickest one for him. So, again, all the drivers coming around are not going to have enough time to finish from here. Looks like Calquin is going to be next, sitting in the 4th spot, and he's going to stay 4th as he doesn't go faster than his 45.7. What about Christian Eisler?
Oh, Eisler off by a tantalizingly close amount, 0.007 of a second slower on that lap. So he is going to have to be content. But here comes Jeffrey Ooms, and there goes Jeffrey Ooms into the pits.
Ben Lafter crosses, though, and he goes up to a 47 flat, but he's going to stay in 10th, unfortunately. What about Duino? Last time of asking, he has an off track, so that one is a non-lap for him. Jennifer McDonald's might be one of our last ones to be able to get across the line, sitting within a top 10. Can she go any quicker? The 99 swings that BMW across those checkered lines, and it's not going to do it. It's a 56.2.
Couldn't do it. O'Donnell lines there. Looks like he is unable to improve as well, so that driver will stay in 6th. Dehard Dan looks like unable to improve on that last lap out, unfortunately, and that's going to be it, Joe.
So let's take a look at our starting order for this evening. It is going to be Paulo Munoz, who starts on the pole overall, with Mauricio Cuero in second. Christian Eisler will start from third. He didn't have a good race last time. Let's see if he can have a better overall weekend, or I guess evening, I guess you could say. Horatio Calquin will start in fourth, with David Duino in P5. Jeffrey Ooms, another one who didn't do too hot at the Nürburgring, going to be starting from sixth. Bit surprised to see him that far down. Nicholas Bornand in seventh is followed by Tiensai Leighton in P8. Then it's Andre Espinoza in ninth and Ben Laughter in 10th. Garcia and Andrew did not put qualifying laps in. Looks like Garcia won't be gridding up, but Andrew will be.
Joe, your top three in the GTEs is a scramble of your top three in points right now. Michael Ross taking the pole from Rafael Russo and Don Squarick. Behind them, Luis Pime Jr. will be lining up fourth in class, followed by Thomas Cope and EJ O'Donnell lines in sixth. Ted Lowendick has a good run there to be in seventh, followed by Lou Barretto and James David, with Jennifer McDonald coming in to round out your top 10. Iago Morris will be 11th, followed by Arnaud Genet in 12th. Jerome Bethune will be lining up in 13th, followed by Vincent Trepanier in 14th. Patrick Arsenault able to bring the 925 home into 15th, followed by Michael Plord and Jean-Claude Langot. In 18th, Marc-André Desjardins, followed by Danny Cervantes in 19th and Gabriel Lavadière in 20th place. And then to round out your GTE qualifiers, it is Philippe Magnin in 21st, Kwok Min in 22nd, and Kenny Rodriguez in 23rd.
Well, it's already tricky enough trying to navigate the traffic during the daytime. So with drivers having to do it in the dark of night here at Sebring, it's going to add an extra wrinkle into things and another level of difficulty. We're waiting for the pace car to take off, which does now. So Munoz follows that Porsche, and we see the cars work their way along the front stretch into the very fast and bumpy turn one. Once they are at pace, those things are going to be bouncing around on cold tires. So hopefully everybody makes it through there safely. Speaking of which, with it being nighttime, as you'd expect, the track temperature is quite cool, 79 Fahrenheit currently on the surface, with quite a bit of wind on top of things, which is only going to complicate it all the more. We got a few onboards here that we're going to be looking at throughout the night. Hopefully we get some good action from them. As we've got three here, and then we'll have another one that we'll be able to show in a bit. This is Thomas Cope to your left. That is David Duino in the middle, and then Ben Laughter is off on the right side. So all of them hopefully will give us a lot of fun to watch. We'll get some insights as the race progresses. And I believe, are we going to pull our fourth in? Yes, it looks like we'll go to Teddy Lowendick here in just a second. He kept teasing that he's got something in store. Now, I haven't actually seen Ted's. I think this is we've got Ben up still here. We'll have this up in a moment. But Ted has made a big hype about whatever he's got ready for us. So I'm very interested in seeing what exactly is going to be coming up. So the man who typically puts his our faces on his helmet doesn't have an actual helmet to put them on here, so he's just going to tape them to his forehead. Wonderful stuff there from Teddy, who tends to like to have some fun with his onboard cams, whether it be in the sim or in real life. So DJ, as they work their way around, we heard some drivers talk between the races on the forum, saying that they felt like those 15 minutes less caused the drivers to be a little bit more aggressive in traffic. Do you think we'll see that continue today, or do you think they'll be able to adapt to the shortened time this time?
Well, Joe, I think that losing that 15 minutes really does just make this feel so much more of a sprint race. And so whether it is intentional or not, drivers are going to tend to be a little bit more aggressive, as there's not nearly as much time to be able to lay back and wait. I think the nighttime is going to have sort of a dual effect on the drivers tonight. Everybody's going to have their guard up. Everybody's going to be a little bit tense because this is not normally something they do. And as a result, they're going to be kind of white knuckle on their wheels a little bit. And I think that's going to cause some errors. However much they're thinking about trying to minimize those errors, and we've heard it time and time again in pre-race, I think they are still going to be prone to them just because it is going to be so harder to see, and they're going to be thinking about something else besides driving.
Alrighty, so as they work their way towards Sunset Bend, the Porsche pace car is going to duck away into the pit lane very soon. Then it'll be Paulo Munoz who will control the start from there. Can he get a good enough jump? There goes the pace car. He's off immediately. Green flag is out. Paulo actually leaves the rest of the field behind. Guerrero is into single file, but Eisler's got a good run. Oh, and a little bit of contact. Swinging down to the inside, that's Cal Quinn. And I think it's only going to be a single car incident as the GTEs thankfully are able to get through. Let's go to DJ.
It was a mega start from Michael Ross to really be able to pull that Ford out into the lead, and behind him a train of Ferraris, Russo, Squirek, and Pime all fighting over that second place, but that big wreck from the LMP2s really causing the GTs to check up and no major action into the first corner.
Not sure who that is that ran into Cal Quinn, but we'll try and check on it, the replay in a bit. Wow, look at this coming down towards the hairpin, and Ross already has a threat from behind. Squirek, who tries to see if he can go the long way around, but that doesn't quite work out. A little bit of locking the brakes up into that sharp right-hander, and they accelerate away towards Cunningham.
Yeah, Squirek is all over the back of him, just seeing what he can do. And now this is the part of the track that I talked about where it's very difficult to pass. Very, very difficult indeed. But Russo now looking like he's going to be able to close up on Squirek. All of these drivers in the back, they are just biding their time at this point, waiting for the moment to see if they can maybe make the run down the Ullman Straight.
Speaking of the Ullman Straight, I think Bornand is coming up to that soon, and he's right on top of Leighton. This is for 5th place in the prototypes. So curious to see if he can get a good enough run. And oh, you just saw him dip 2 wheels into the dirt. He's lucky he did not spin that thing.
And that's exactly what I was talking about in the pre-race show. You've got to nail that that exit out of Le Mans if you want to have any sort of a run. Bornand not really able to get it, and you're able to see there just how they are able to stay ahead.
Back onto the front stretch, and our field completes lap 1. Still 43 minutes left to go in today's event. Heading back to Michael Ross, he's split himself about half a second ahead of Squirek, with Russo giving chase, and then Thomas Cope is about a half second behind in 4th.
Indeed, nobody able to really get an advantage going down the Ullman Straight, but it looks like Squirek is very, very strong through this first sector, keeping very close up behind in turn 2, gets a little bit of exit curb there, but now he may try to make the run down into the hairpin.
Ross still running that Ford GT, not willing to give up on that car as we watch from Cope's perspective here. He's still on the back of Russo. Has actually caught up a little bit. You see from the helmet cam of the number 64 as we check to see what he's doing in his actual rig. Now, I see some jostling. I'm not sure. It doesn't look like a full motion machine, but it's definitely looking like, wonder if that's the wheels feedback, actually.
I think it is, Joe, and it really is a testament to just how bumpy it is at Sebring. Look at that, even in the corners, just having to catch and grab at the wheel, trying to keep the angle of steering that you want. It is just such an absolutely mega bumpy ride around here. It's why you hear drivers say the 12 hours of Sebring is harder to drive than even the 24 hours of Daytona.
Coming through Le Mans and onto the Ullman Straight. Squirek has got a very good run, as we can see up ahead. So the 75 could have a shot if he wants to. Let's see if he actually ducks out. No, he is willing to sit behind as Ross's Ford comes around Sunset Bend and onto the front stretch. Now, if he continues to stay behind like this, it almost makes me think that that Ferrari is more interested in saving fuel.
It's a very real possibility, Joe. We have been able to see what these guys can do if they can eke out and go a little bit for the overcut. Oh. But here comes the run. SquareX thinking about it, down into turn 2, dives to the inside.
Ross gives him space. It's going to go too wide. He clips the curb, and Ross has to give it up. SquareX, your new leader. And because they went side by side, time was lost, and Russo quickly gains to the rear of that 67 Ford. But look at him in a straight line. Michael Ross, incredibly fast here as he brakes hard, looking to the inside of the hairpin, tries to get the spot back, almost a little contact with a Ferrari, has to back out of it.
I think he was about a foot too far back on that one, Joey. Just couldn't stick his nose inside. And now Rafael Russo looking very, very racy behind Ross, trying to see if he can psych out the Ford driver a little bit, as it is very difficult to pass here through this Sector 2.
So it looks like they'll spread apart briefly. I think we've got time. Do we want to see what happened to Cal Quinn on that opening lap? So let's take a look at the replay here, and I'm trying to find who got into the back of him. I believe it's Duino, actually. Yeah, it's Duino that hits him, at least on the way in, and then he got caught by Espinoza as well in a big way. So you'll see him get a shunt from behind. That's what sends him spinning, smacks the wall, and then another car. Yeah, that's the second hit.
Yeah, and you could see even before that, Joe, he was on the headlights flashing in anger. I don't know if that was Eisler or Cuero that sort of cut in front of him, but Cal Quinn very, very unhappy even from the beginning, and that's just making matters even worse as we focus in on that battle for lead in LMP2.
It's Munoz and Cuero already 3 seconds ahead of Christian Eisler. They're putting themselves healthily out of reach of the rest of the LMP2 field. So very contrasting situations between our GTE and LMP2 leaders, where it's come down to just 2 here in the prototypes, but the sports cars see themselves with a whole train up at the front.
Well, and it's kind of what we've seen from these guys time and time again, is now they're working their way around, I believe that is Genet. He came in on the first lap, he just drove through the pits, not sure what it is, but that's why that single GTE is getting lapped at this point.
This is a battle for P4, Leighton in front of Duino. Now that was a pretty decent hit to the front of the 11. I wonder if David's experiencing any sort of damage from that. Remember, he qualified in 4th place, so he's down a spot since the start as we check and see what he's up to. Look at the intense focus that he's got as he gives a glance to the camera itself. So I'm not sure if he's listening to us and is aware that he is on, sends it in, and actually grimaces a bit as he hits the brakes there into sunset.
Yeah, Joe, I'm not sure if that's exactly the line he would want to take out in clear air like that. It looks a little bit like that was a good attacking line if he was trying to make a move on a car, but there you can see the eyes starting to focus around, work their way through the corner. Ooh, a little bit of grass there on the outside.
Holds on to it, but he's now under attack, and Bornand is going to be able to get inside. Oh, they're going to come together, and that is going to bump him off again. He spins around. And Bornand also finds himself losing positions as Ooms is the one able to take advantage. All caught live as, unfortunately, Duino's start of this race in just the first 5 laps has had 2 incidents with car contact.
So we're going to take a bit of a bird's eye view of this at this point and check out what was going on. So there you see that's Duino around the outside, catches that bit of grass. That slows him down. There goes into the braking point. Bit of a late move there behind, but then tries to get up going and just nowhere to go.
So we come back live. Ooms is now promoted to 5th. He's got a ways to go to get to Leighton as he had to check up to avoid that incident. It's about 5 seconds. Duino continues running in 7th, and Bornand, sadly, because of the contact, must have gotten too much damage because he has since towed to pit lane.
Well, and Joe, on these LMP2s, that can very easily happen with all of the strakes and aero that are sticking off of it, so I understand his decision.
As we once again poke our noses up towards the GTE leaders, SquareX ahead of Michael Ross. Remember, Squirek won the last round, and it was Russo, interestingly, who both had the pole and the fastest lap at the Nürburgring, but still finished in third. Where's Russo now? Well, he's in third again.
This seems to be a bit of a recurring theme for him there, so we'll have to see what he is able to do at this point. But there you can see as we focus in on Michael Ross working his way there. A bit of a dust kicked up from the back of the field as they make their way onto the Ulmann Straight.
That was actually Cope in fourth place. He went way wide, lost a lot of time on third, Russo, and falls back to nearly a second behind that Ferrari. We come around to start lap 6, and while Ross started this one on the behind Don Squirek, he did lead the start of the race, and quite well. The good news for that Ford is that he is holding on to the back of Don Squirek, so even though he's managed to retake the spot, he hasn't been able to gap the others in his class.
No, he really hasn't, and I'm not sure if that's a result of maybe the dirty air that Ross is having to deal with Squirek ahead of them, or if it may just be a car setup issue. We noticed when he tried to make the move going down into this very area, through down into the hairpin, that it seemed like Ross just had a top speed advantage, so I'm wondering if maybe he's got a bit of a compromised setup.
Oh, sending it in deep. Michael Ross, I'm not sure if he intended that, because he suddenly dove his nose down to the right side, almost like he was afraid of hitting the 75. Cost him a little bit as he's now 0.6 of a second back. You can see the top three still hold that gap ever since Thomas Cope made that mistake. O'Donnell Lines instead behind him is starting to make it a fight for that fourth position, along with Teddy Lowendick.
Yeah, Ted really capitalizing from a great qualifying there to get him into the top 10. Lowendick working his way up through the field in that BMW of his as we continue to focus here on this lead train. Looks like Squirk's able to pull about 0.2 of a second away from Ross during this second sector.
Well, let's see if Ross is fast like we noticed before, coming onto the Ulmann Straight. 0.9 of a second as they come off of Le Mans. Oh, it's already down to 0.8 of a second. They're not even a Sunset Bend yet. 0.7 of a second. Yes, indeed. Michael Ross looks to have trimmed this thing out.
Yeah, just glancing at our live time in the scoring, Joe, it looks like Ross is able to go about 1 mile to 2 or 3 miles an hour faster down that straight. Yes, he is getting advantage of the draft, but he's just got more top speed than the leader. But the only problem with that being is that there is a lot of this track that is very, very twisty, and that is allowing Russo to catch up behind him.
Well, while we have lost, looks like Danny Cervantes in our GTEs, that's the only sports car that has been lost this race. In contrast, Bernand is out, Espinoza is gone, and looks like Horatio Calquin is many laps down. In the GTEs, 10th place, here we go, Trepanier and Louise Pime Jr. along with Jerome Bertome fighting for a top 10.
I thought for a second there, Joe, that Pime Jr. was going to be able to have a run down into the hairpin, but just didn't get the exit that he wanted coming out of the Gurney Bend. You can see him really close up there under braking. Gaps a little bit here. He's going to have to hold on to everything and maybe just try to force an error at this point on Trepanier.
All of them now braking hard into Cunningham, and Pime Jr. looks to be incredibly good on the binders as he gained a lot of time on the 87 Ferrari in that sequence. And once again, whoa! In fact, locking him up, trying to keep from running into the back of him. And that cost him a little bit. So, well, we know how Louise is going to try and overtake, and it's probably going to be under braking.
Exactly, and now he's got to be very careful not to make that same mistake here going into Le Mans. Looks like he's able to give himself a little bit of a gap, so he's able to take full advantage of that late braking, run the car wide, not scrub off too much speed, now just tuck up behind here in the draft. Although it looks like Trepanier's got a little bit of an advantage here. I think he's pulling away ever so slightly.
He's definitely not going to catch Vincent at this point, but oh my goodness. he just chucks that car into corners and somehow makes it work when he comes out the other side. He gets right up to the edge of the grass as we just about crack the first 14 minutes of this race. As much as he is good on the brakes, it doesn't seem to be getting him the spot. I do worry that eventually he's going to not anticipate it correctly and cause a wreck with the 87.
I am too, but he has just got to judge this right. Let's keep an eye here as there you see Munoz and Cuero trading the fastest lap. Gets a pretty decent exit there out of the second corner, but I don't think that's enough. He needs a little bit more power to be able to make a late dive here down into the hairpin. But let's watch this braking again down onto the binders. No lockup this time out, so he's at least able to stay close behind.
Certainly giving him something to think about. But again, it's one thing to be close to a car. It's a whole nother to try and pass them. Ooh, and a little bit wide through the corner as they go side by side through Collier briefly. And unfortunately, Pime Jr. is not able to complete the pass, but defensive down into Tower. Trepanier is going to compromise his corner greatly. Pime Jr. now gets a tiny bit of overlap. As they come into Bishop, it's going to be going his way, but they'll be braking hard and going right. Oh, early braking for Trepanier. Gives up the ghost. The 33 gets himself 10th place.
Remember when I said you couldn't pass in that second sector, Joe? Luis Pime Jr. just telling me I am all kinds of wrong. That was incredible two-wide action, but now let's keep an eye on this as here comes Trepanier.
Cuero's had a problem. Cuero has wrecked in Bishop, and he takes a tow. This had to have been a big accident, and I think it was with traffic. It's Philippe Mignon, who catches him. He tried to go 3 wide. He was 2 wheels into the grass. I mean, I understand the hustle that he felt to try and stay with the leader, but... oh, no. Oh, and a second hit on top of it before he spins it into the wall. Magnan is able to continue. I'm not sure who the other driver was that made the second contact, but that was a doozy.
It most certainly was, Joe, and I really have to say I think that was a little bit on Mignon there. Should have recognized that the LMT2 was going to be coming through, squeezed him a little bit to the line, but you can rest assured Cuero going to be very, very upset with that result. Stuck back in the pits after a good run here today.
Thing is, that was for position, and he was side by side with the other car. So, I mean, Philippe had his own fight to do in that moment. And that was actually Gabriel Lavadière, the 338 that made that second hit. He is also still on track currently, so it wasn't bad enough that he had to come into the pits immediately at least. But in the darkness, hard to pick out how much damage he has. Let's see as it goes by here. The nose is sporting some, not a whole lot.
Yeah, and with these GTEs, they can take a bit of a more beating than their prototype brethren, so it doesn't look like it's affecting them too much at this point, but we'll have to keep an eye on lap times to see if it falls at all.
So as Vincent Trepanier leads Jerome Breton in 11th and 12th, they're experiencing the first of our prototypes cycling past. Munoz is already through. Up next is going to be Arsenault. No, excuse me, going to be Christian Eisler, rather. Eisler, a full 5.5 seconds back. My goodness, that gap after Munoz lost out has certainly increased. This is the Iceman's perspective. He's going to get one down into turn 1, not multiple, though. Maybe he'll get another as he exits down towards turn 3. Yes, indeed. He's going to slot inside nice and tidy. Oh, way wide next to him, though. Has to worry about those sort of things. Vincent in the 87 nearly wrecked his car in front of him.
He did, but you could see there just how heads-up Eisler was trying to keep that thing on the left side of the track as far over as possible to avoid any incidents like we saw happen to Cuero. He's able to get through now, and that cost him a little bit of time back to Tiensai Leighton. Oh, big lockup there from, I believe that was Trepanier.
It was, so Jerome gets 11th because of that. And that's twice in 2 or 3 laps that Vincent has given up spots. One from braking too early, that one from braking too late. Gonna glance at the replay here. What if he got unsighted, or what happened?
Comes through here. Looks like that was just a simple instance of missing the braking point. I think there was a very slight lockup maybe from Eisler in front of him there. And that kind of lockup can just cause you to lose focus for a second, maybe not put the exact pressure you need to on the brakes, and that can be all it takes to give you a lockup like that.
Checking out the battle for 5th, Ted Lowendick chasing O'Donnell Lines. Wonder if we can check in on Teddy here and see what he's like, as Thomas Cope has pitted from in front of them, so he is taking an early stop. That's interesting. Down through turn 1, separated by very little here, just about a car length and a half. On board now with the 72. We check in with the driver cam. And there is Teddy once again. Intense focus from the driver. I'm not sure. I guess I've never really looked what I look like when I'm driving, but I'm surprised to see the drivers just with this serious of faces.
Well, Joe, I'm not sure if he's on microphone or if he's doing what I do, which is talking himself through the corners there, and I can tell you that is a very common thing to see as well. But yeah, as you said, very intently focused. You can see just how much he's getting into it, leaning his body in through the corners, just trying to will that car forward and doing a very good job to keep everything nice and contained right now.
Still within half a second of O'Donnell Lines. You can see him up ahead, but he's also got to keep his eyes in his mirrors because he's already just been lapped by Munoz. And I believe, where is, man, Eisler's 7 seconds back now. Munoz is slicing through this traffic.
Really is, Joe, and I have to say, I think that Munoz is just being a hair more aggressive than Christian is through traffic. Christian just trying to be a little bit more cautious, not go for the moves, but here, this is going to be very interesting for Munoz, able to catch them on a good point on the Ullman Straight. He's going to be very thankful to make that pass through the battling GTEs.
Absolutely. As that is Munoz going past our second place driver, Michael Ross, who interestingly has fallen off of Squirk a little bit and has instead been playing a rear guard on Rafael Russo. Oh, we've got Jennifer McDonald in the pits now. She's been running a great race within the top 10. And she is our second driver, I want to say, that's making a scheduled stop. Thomas Cope was the other one. He is continuing on 14th. There is Jennifer and her Bimmer taking service, and she's out actually a second quicker than Cope. Cope is by anyways.
It's interesting, Joe. Cope was up in front of her on the track before they came in. Both of those pit stops are a little bit earlier than what I would suspect is normally happening, but it is within the pit window, so both of these drivers clear to the end at this point, and they'll just be racing all out.
Let's watch with the number 64 here. Cope about 5.5 seconds ahead of Jennifer McDonald. Currently chasing down Langlois, who is about 2 seconds up the road, but he has not stopped yet. And this is the downside to those early strategies, DJ, if he has to pass those cars that have not. Oh, and Lou Barretto just had an incident. I'm checking to see if this is worth seeing. Ooh, I think he got help from a prototype, unfortunately. Ooh, boy. Barretto in the number 20 had to take a tow. He hit the wall hard enough that his day may be done here. Watching from Cope's perspective, he's still at about 2.1 seconds. So I guess the good news is he isn't being held up by Jean-Claude. Bad news is he isn't catching Jean-Claude.
Exactly. Oh my goodness gracious, Joe. You can see just how violent those shakes and shimmies are as he goes over the corner. Looks like that the car is just trying to upset him as much as possible, but Thomas doing a great job to keep it together.
I mentioned Russo catching up to Ross. He's got it down to 0.3 of a second. There you see now the bright blue lights on the back of Michael Ross. Still ahead of Rafael Russo in the Ferrari. Coming down into the brakes here. Getting on the binders hard. And then out of the hairpin one more time. Gaining about 1/10. Michael keeping himself safe. They still got a number of our LMP2s that need to still pass them, but the upside is that they have a lot of space between most of those prototypes.
They do indeed, but they don't have a lot of space between them and Jeffrey Ooms, who is the fourth place prototype right now, working his way through. Oh, gets in front of Russo there. That is going to be a bit of a saving grace to Michael Ross, and will gift Ross about 2 or 3/10 of a second. And so now Russo is going to have to try to claw that time back in again.
20 minutes to go. We're almost 2/3 of the way through this race now, which should see the pit window start to close up a whole lot more. So who are we going to see duck in an attempt to try and undercut somebody? Not typically what is as useful here in these GT cars, but sometimes if you're dealing with traffic, it is worth attempting. Down and around both of them not pitting. Ross and Russo elect to stay out for lap 14.
No, and I do think, though, that with as spaced out as we're seeing these LMPs are right now, for a lot of these GT drivers, they're not going to have to take that necessarily into consideration in terms of the pitting. However, for the LMP2s, where they're catching traffic, that is something they're going to have to keep an eye out for just to make sure they don't lose any space.
It fascinates me that as things sit, they are currently how they were at the end of the Nürburgring still. Skorek, Ross, Russo. That's exactly how the podium was over in Germany. And, well, it's crazier than that. O'Donnell Lines finished 4th there, and he's 4th on the track right now. It only breaks up at P5 with Ted Lowendick, but 5th at the Nürburgring was Thomas Cope, and he's already pitted. So he might actually cycle back into that top 5 position. We'll have to see where the pit stops leave him.
Yeah, looking at those times, he's definitely going to be able to jump up the order, potentially all the way up to 5th or 6th for Cope. So that's a good call for that early stop for him. Keep focusing in here on that battle with Ross and Russo, the battle for P2 right now. Russo able to close that gap back up to about 0.5 of a second, so he's clearly got speed. But as we saw earlier on when Squarek was trying to catch Michael Ross, it looks like that Ford just has a little bit more straight line speed, and that's making it very, very difficult for Russo to get a move done.
Always good to have a quick car if you can handle it in the corners. Yet another prototype, going to split them. This time it's going to be Ben Laughter. Laughter's been doing pretty handy just through survival, which doesn't surprise me since he's probably earned that skill from racing in the Camel GT series. But having qualified in 10th, which I think was the last of our drivers to qualify in the prototypes, he's up to P5 currently. So we now check on both Ben Laughter and David Duino, split by about 2.5 seconds. Now remember, Duino should be a little bit higher up the order here. You see the pair of them coming through Big Bend now. Duino's going to just be going on by the likes of Russo and Ross. Of course, that is Duino that you see with the, the trout hat, which I'll let you explain what's going on with the trout hat here, DJ.
Well, to my knowledge, Joe, that is a giveaway from a Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim game and is a Mike Trout special hat. And as an Angels fan myself, I have to say, pun intended, hats off to you there, my friend.
Ben Laughter, on the other hand, sporting his VR set. He continues to glance around, trying to spot his apexes, watch out for the traffic. Still at about 2.5 seconds ahead of David. So this battle isn't quite hot yet. You never know, though, when it gets towards the end of the race, especially since we think that Duino might be suffering from a little bit of damage from early contact in this race. Paulo Munoz still our leader in that class. We haven't been showing him because it's up to 10.3 seconds. It's really been a rout today from Paulo. He wasn't able to take the win out at the Nürburgring. In fact, finished 13th there. And unfortunately, just found himself, I think, was he the one punted off at the very start? I'm trying to remember what happened to him here.
I believe he was, Joe.
Yeah. Ugh. So making up for that, as and O'Donnell lines into the pits. He came in. I was checking to see. It almost looked like he came in hot. No, he hit his marks cleanly. So he is going to start to lose positions. Pime Jr. pits behind him. So where is Thomas Cope going to come out in relation to O'Donnell lines? He's still taking service. He's got a ways to go down that pit lane. Now he's out, but Cope is already passed.
All right, so that early stop paying dividends for Thomas Cope. That will put him, by my estimations, he could be all the way up to 4th when all of this shakes out.
I think you're right. He's still waiting for Bertome, Lowendick, those two to pit, and I think he'll easily overtake them. But Russo, Ross, and Squirek obviously going to be a bigger question mark on if he can try to run them down. 15 minutes left to go on the clock. Checking in here with, I believe this is Thomas Cope that we see on screen. 6.5 seconds up to Jerome Bertome. But I'm pretty sure before he can catch that 2:17, we should see the Porsche duck into pit lane.
We should indeed, and we just heard over the radio, Joe, that our second place driver, Michael Ross, is going to be coming into the pits on this lap. So now at this point, the eyes where I'm going to be focusing is on Rafael Russo. Did he save some fuel behind that Ford? And is he able to now make the pass in the pits that he wasn't able to make on the straight? No, he's going to come in as well, as is Squirek.
Gonna watch from Laughter here, who is also pitting in. Now, I heard him chatting on the radio about something, wanting something reviewed. Not sure if he had an incident. Checking real quick to see if he's in scheduled. Yeah, looks like this. He drove it into the pits.
Yeah, Joe, I think he got some sort of time penalty there in the pits. That is a very, very slow stop for Ben Laughter.
It is indeed. By the way, Squirek, Ross, Russo all exited as they came in, but Cope just went by Lowendick. So Cope, as you predicted, up to 4th. O'Donnell lines into 5th. Lowendick returns P6 with the last couple behind them pitting. That is everybody in the GT class in Munoz. Our leader finally comes in for fuel.
All right, so it looks like those LMP2s then as well may be reaching the end of their fuel window here. Munoz eyeing his stall on the binders, bringing it down. A little bit slow entry, but much better to do that than get yourself a speeding penalty.
Well, when you've got a 10-second gap, I think he can afford to be a little careful on that. Make sure that he gets himself in and doesn't miss his stall, giving up valuable seconds. Ooms is in, Leighton is in, and Duino is in. That's everybody in the LMP2s.
It is indeed, and I think all on that kerfluffle, we missed that Christian Eisler had come in on the lap before, but he is going to be able to get past Hienside, Leighton, Jeffrey Ooms, and David Duino, so Eisler back up to 2nd place.
Eisler, another one who didn't finish well in the end. In fact, he copped a 10-point penalty, championship points, as he was involved in an incident last race, and the stewards decided he needed a slap on the wrist for that one. So his 2nd place, if he can grab it, that'll help him tremendously in the championship. He swings it through the hairpin, only has to survive 11 more minutes, though I suspect he's not thinking about a win here, considering the monster gap that Munoz has pulled ahead of him.
Indeed. I think at this point he is just focusing in on a good points finish at this point. He does have to keep his eye out of the rearview mirror as Tiensai Leighton only about 2 seconds behind him, so Leighton's within closing room.
Leighton's had a very good day, almost a sleeper day. He's on the podium. He started in 8th, and this isn't a driver that we see on the podium often here in PRL Sportscar Series. So as we watch from his perspective, I have to give a nod to the head of Tiensai Leighton in that number 19 for running a calm, collected race and surviving as others around him faltered.
I do too, Joe. And, you know, Leighton was a newcomer to the series last year. We saw him have a couple of squirrely races here and there. But near the end of the season, we started seeing a lot of this consistency, and he is really just showing some great outright pace in the opening 2 rounds of this season. So massive, massive kudos to making that step forward to Tiensai Leighton.
Back in the GTE class, they spread apart somewhat after the pit stops, but it is scrunching back together very slightly. It's 1.2 seconds from car to car, first, second, and third. SquareX still leads Ross, still leads Russo. So this will be intriguing. I believe this is even exactly where they qualified as well. And they've got about 6 seconds back to Thomas Cope, who we've been following with his onboard throughout the day. So they're not really under threat. Oh, what happened to Eisler? Did traffic cost him? Because suddenly Leighton is right on top of him, taking a poke down to the inside of Cunningham. Doesn't produce a position. I'm checking to see. Yeah, it was lap traffic. Just at the wrong time, unfortunately, for Christian Eisler. 2 cars that were side-by-side battling in front of him, and he couldn't get through. It actually did involve an incident with Philippe Magnan. Unfortunately, we can't go back to the replay at this point as we watch Leighton chase, but what was 0.2 of a second has already grown to 0.6 of a second.
Yeah, Eisler really having the pedal down here. You can see just how wide he took it going through the entrance of Le Mans, and that wiggle there from Tiensai Leighton not going to help him as they both get the power down the Ullman straight. The gap holding at about 0.8 of a second here. I don't think Leighton's going to have a chance, but he is at least within striking range and will have the benefit of the draft if he can keep up close behind.
Laps are starting to tick down to where I think we only have about 5 left here through turn 1. The battle for second is not over. And off of that corner, Leighton keeps it about 0.8 of a second. If they hit traffic again that doesn't behave well with Christian Eisler, that could give him another shot. They do have David and Langlois up in front of them.
They do indeed. They're going to have to be very careful of that, as that is a battle on or it's not a battle on track, excuse me. David is a lap down, so they're going to catch a little bit of a break with that. Hopefully everybody will be able to get through cleanly.
Yeah, the fact that those aren't fighting for position should make it a little less frantic, with them being able and hopefully willing to give space and let them through without costing them time, since they are in a battle. As we watch this, I can report that Russo has cut down that 1.2 second gap to 0.7 on Ross, and Ross has lost to Squirek about half a second, which actually matches. Oh, and Eisler going through the grass there into Bishop. That was brave. Can we get an onboard there with a 727?
All right, here we go, Joe. This is just a man who does not want to lose that second step of the podium here today. So there comes Eisler. Yep, thank you. I'll take that. Oh, my goodness. And look at that rev counter. Didn't lift.
That looked much scarier on board than it did from off board. That car bounced and then some. Great job to Eisler, and that may have saved him from losing that time. He's now up to 1.2 seconds ahead of Leighton. Oh, and this battle is now very hot. The 67 is playing defense on the 22.
was indeed. It looked like there that Michael Ross got held up ever so slightly by Curlin Andrew, one of the LMP2s in front. So now impetus is going to be on Russo to try to make a move as fast as he can. Remember, we think that Ross has got a little bit more speed down the straightaways, but can Russo combat that with the draft?
He could, he might. It depends on the exit he gets out of Le Mans. Behind him, that's Ben Laughter. And he's just going to be able to get to the inside, but it doesn't look like it's the sort of exit that Russo would have wanted. He starts to lose ground, and now Ross is going to get a big tow at the end of the straight from Laughter's prototype. So, unfortunately for Russo, he'll have to try again later, but he's not going to have too many more tries with this. We've only got 5 minutes left.
Do indeed, but as we ride on board with Rafael Russo here, he is very close. He's definitely thinking about it, trying to see if he can throw Ross off his game, but Ross is one of the most concentrated drivers in this series. Good exit off the corner for both drivers as they go down now into turn 2, closing up a little bit during braking.
Interesting how much curb Russo's taking compared to Ross here. Just really letting it drift up onto it. They pick up speed, 140 miles an hour, 150 miles an hour, and climbing before they finally get on the binders. Ross is just too far ahead for the 22. Making life very difficult, unfortunately, for that Ferrari. Who they have next trying to overtake? Looks like, wow, they don't have a prototype for a long time. The next one is actually going to be Munoz, and I don't think he'll even catch them before the race is even over. Looks like Teddy has some company. O'Donnell Lines, the 24 BMW chasing that 72. They come through Collier, braking hard down into Tower Corner. How calm can the jokester be? He's currently sitting 5th in his class.
And there you see he is just focused ahead. And remember, these two are teammates, so I don't think you're going to be seeing any really late dives here, probably in contact with one another, letting each other know what's going on. But nevertheless, that racer's instinct will kick in at some point, and when there is a move to be had, you can rest assured that O'Donnell Lines will take it.
So I'm curious, with all of our faces on there, does that make it a 4 head that he's got there?
I see what you did there, Joe, and yes. I fully approve.
Thank you. Well, no overtake this time down into Sunset Bend as EJ doesn't seem to have the speed. Oh, but he gets a good exit. He's starting to gain a little bit here. Looks like he's not going to gain enough, though.
No, decides to back off a little bit. That's going to give Ted a little bit more of breathing room. I think O'Donnell Lines is just trying to figure out when he needs to try to make the move, what his best opportunity is going to be here.
A little wide there at turn 3. That Vector car, and here we go. This is the best chance we've seen yet. EJ is lining him up, and just as he does that, that's Paulo Munoz going by. I was proven wrong. He did manage to catch them and pass them. Did that distract him enough that he decided not to make it? Whatever the case, EJ remains in 6th, once again outbraking himself. Teddy just making small errors here and there.
And those little small errors will cost you left, right, and center if you're not careful. EJ back on the tail of his teammate Ted Lowendick. So here they go, diving it down through the corner. Not going to be able to really make a move there. Or are we going to see something aggressive in the lead up to Le Mans?
Good question. We'll have to watch and see. And they might actually get the white flag this time by with 1 to go. Like you said, they are teammates, so maybe they have orders to just kind of run in line to the finish, not really fight each other, so that they wrap up those 5th and 6th place spots. Munoz now on the back stretch. They're running 145s. This actually might be rather close. I'm not sure if this is going to be the white flag or not.
We're going to check in on our leader here. 145. Yes, Joe, I think this is going to be the white flag.
It will indeed, just barely. White flag waves. Munoz with a handicap of 13.5 seconds. And he's coming upon another fight. Michael Ross and Rafael Russo in front of him. So let's hope that he doesn't get tangled as we take a glance at that one.
Continue to check it. Ross has done a good job of keeping Russo at bay here. They've got about 2.5 seconds up the road to your overall leader of Pablo Munoz. Or Pablo Munoz, rather. You can see him flashing into the back of your screen. No move there from Russo. I think he knows that that LMP2 is coming, and he's going to hope it's going to work to his advantage.
So how much of a hurry is Paulo in? Does he try and barge through, or does he give them plenty of space? I think he actually could cruise to the finish behind them if he didn't want to interrupt it. And look at how quickly he catches them at probably the worst spot on the track, one of the narrowest parts here in Collier. He knows it. He's going to wait. He'll get a great shot around them coming off of Tower if he desires it. There's one. Is he going to have two?
Looks like he's going to go for it, and I don't think Ross expects him to do that out onto the grass ever so slightly. Doesn't look like it affected Michael Ross all that much, though.
He's able to retain the spot. And Paulo Munoz coming up to Don Skoric. We're going to have both leaders together here at the finish. So the 3-2-1 who put it on the pole started to get himself away from all of his rivals. And once they fell away, he did not look back. Paulo Munoz gonna take the victory here today, redeeming himself at Sebring. And Don Skoric, back-to-back wins to start the season, shows a dominating force lies beneath that number 75 Ferrari. Looks like Ross is going to be able to take second, 0.6 of a second ahead of Russo. It was close at the end, and Eisler manages to get second with Leighton getting a well-earned third. Let's take a look at that finish. We were so caught up in watching our winners. Ross just had a horrible run off of Sunset. Here it is right here.
Yeah, you can see that bump in the middle of the curb upset him ever so slightly. I think he countered a little bit too hard. Didn't expect Russo to really make as hard of a run to the outside. But in the end, Russo just didn't have quite enough momentum.
As the rest of them eventually get across, looks like we don't really have much in the way of battles left. So as our drivers complete their races, we are going to go to a quick break. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so stick around. Welcome back to Sebring International Raceway. Hope you're not sick of this place yet. After a lot of racing here in the past few weeks, seemed like Paulo Munoz isn't sick of it because he came away with the win in quite dominant form. Christian Eisler, making up for his poor results in Germany, gets himself a second place, and Tianxai Leighton up 5 spots to reach the podium today. Jeffrey Ooms, a little bit better. He finished in 4th today, and David Duino, unfortunately, only able to recover to 5th after he had car contacts out there a couple of times. Ben Laughter was in 6th, and Curlin Andrew, the last of our prototypes to manage to finish on the lead lap, in 7th, and a bunch of DNFs in the prototypes behind him.
Not that many DNFs, though, in the GTE, and they were led off by Don Squirk, taking his 2nd consecutive victory. Behind him, Michael Ross was able to hold off Rafael Russo to finish out your podium. Behind then, Thomas Cope came home in 4th place, followed by Ted Lowendick. EJ O'Donnell Lines came home in 5th, or in 6th rather, followed by Jennifer McDonald. Great race for her. Iago Morris was in 8th, and Luis Payne Jr. in 9th. Jerome Bethune was in 10th, followed by Vincent Trepanier in 11th. Patrick Arsenault was 12th, followed by Gabriel Lavadier in 20th place overall. Then back in 14th in class was Philippe Magnan and Michael Plord. Behind them, Jean-Claude Langeau in 23rd overall, followed by Marc-André Desjardins. Behind them, Quang Nic and Arnaud Genet, the last drivers to finish.
Looks like we have our overall winner ready to talk to us, Paulo Munoz. And Paulo, you started it on the top spot. You finished in the top spot. Is it as easy as that makes it sound, though?
Well, hi guys. No, it wasn't, not at all. Sebring is always a tough track, and it was shaping to be a fantastic race with Mauricio. I was sweating a lot in the first 5-6 laps until sadly he crashed.
Yeah, it looked like he was the one best positioned to try and challenge you. Once he wrecked, did you feel pretty calm about the race, or did the traffic really keep you on your toes?
Oh, after his accident, I definitely relaxed a little bit because I didn't have the constant pressure from behind. So I could wait on entry and not have to dive bomb traffic to gain time because I didn't have anyone right next to me on track. But this is always a tough track for traffic. The speed difference is so big between the cars that any mistake, any moment you lose focus can cost you dearly.
This certainly gets your season off on a better foot now. So as we head off going towards Road America, do you think you can pull that off again, or does the fact that there's those long straights allowing the draft trains make it that much harder to be able to beat the others around you?
Road America is a tricky track because of the draft, like you just mentioned. Even if you have a pace advantage over several cars, they can just keep up with you, even if they are half a second off. So hopefully I can repeat such a great race. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to race. Depends on my flight roster, so I'm not sure yet. But hopefully, if I am able to race, I'll do my best and hopefully win.
Well, we hope we get to see you plenty more this season. And again, congratulations today, sir.
Thank you so much, Yo, and the team.
That was Paulo Munoz, winner in the LMP2 class. And then the winner in the GTs was Don Squirek, and DJ's caught up with him.
Well, Don, it's 2 for 2 here today. You drove on the stat sheet what looks like a pretty dominating race, but it looked like Ross and Russo were never that close or never that far behind you.
Yeah, it was. I never really got a whole lot of place to breathe, and also made it a little bit harder for myself by qualifying third and having to work my way past them. They fought tough but fair. So yeah, credit to them for keeping so tight and keeping me so on my toes.
Yeah, talk me through those opening couple of laps, because you just looked like a man on a mission there working your way forward.
Yeah, I kind of botched qualifying a bit, so I tried to do my best to make up for it. I noticed that Russo left quite a bit of a gap to Ross on the start, so I just made sure to stay tucked right up underneath Ross's rear bumper. I was able to dispatch him there, and then I noticed I was getting a better run than Ross out of turn 1, so I figured that's where my move was going to come. So I just tried to set up for there without getting too comfortable. And then tried my best to pull out a gap, but it never really got to be more than 2 seconds. So, never really got a whole bunch of breathing room.
Well, it looked a little bit like Ross had just a hair more, a top speed or acceleration or just something for you on the straights. Was that a setup advantage, you think? Or maybe it looked like that Rafael was suffering from the same problem. Do you think that was maybe just a niggle with the Ferrari itself?
I think so. With this BOP update, they added a little bit more drag and reduced a little bit of drag off of a Ford. If that's where some top speed disparity was coming from, it might have been coming from there. Could have also been down to different wing angles and whatnot, but yeah, it was close.
It was indeed. It made for a great race. And Don, congratulations again on the second win of the season. Anybody you'd like to thank tonight?
Oh yeah, I'd love to thank all the sponsors for Radicals Online, JRT, Cranfield Simulation, Turn Racing, and Track Racer. And I also want to give a special shout out to Jesse Stevens, former PRL champion. He has his Spirit Reaper Twitch account with setup streams, which is actually where I got this setup from one of his setup streams where he gives away the setup to his subscribers. So yeah, feel free to check him out.
Excellent. I'm writing that down for my own edification. Thank you so much, Don. And now Joe Peak has caught up with one of our onboard drivers, Ben Laughter.
Absolutely. And Ben making good use today out of everybody else's problems. You qualified down in 10th. You're well down in the order, and you came away with a 6th place. Do you think Camel teaching you how to avoid all the chaos kind of helped in that?
Man, I'll tell you, the Audi 90 GTO teaches you nothing about driving a prototype, but it teaches you a lot about multi-class, and so car placement matters a lot. I ran this whole race with damage. My steering was cocked 15, 20 degrees left the whole race. Had a great fight with David there. I'm still learning this group, but had a great fight with David there. Had a lot of fun with him chasing me down. I don't think I could have held him off, but then I suffered a friggin' penalty in the pits and had to chase down Carrion, I believe his name was. So a lot of fun. I'm enjoying this series. I just need to get better at driving these high downforce cars.
Yeah, we heard your explanation post-race about what had caused your extra long pit stop. But what do you know what caused the damage? Because we were completely unaware about that.
Yeah, I'm about 8/10 faster than what my pace was there. During the opening lap, there were 3 of us going into Cunningham, and I was around the outside, and whoever was on the inside tagged my front right fender and popped me up in the air a bit, and I had front right damage the whole time. My steering was all out of whack, so I was off my own pace. I was a bit faster, but I don't think faster enough to change my position. At best, I would have been 5th today.
At least it sounds like you have a realistic take and you know where you can improve. Heading off to Road America, do you have any predictions there? Another top 5 maybe?
I predict that I'll start somewhere around the back and I'll act as a vulture and pick up spots as people spin, and hopefully survive and just get better and faster. Right now I'm racing for 10th, let's be honest. But 3 weeks from now maybe I'm racing for 7th. So I'm gonna keep trying. Top 5s are my goal, but that's an aggressive goal right now with me in these cars.
Well, thanks for coming and talking to us. Thanks for the great views as you were racing, and can't wait to see you off in Wisconsin.
See you in Camel on Saturday.
That as well. That was Ben Laughter, who finished 6th. And hey, Vulture Racing is just as legitimate. I tend to race that way myself because I'm certainly not fast in qualifying. But we have DJ ready to talk to our 3rd place finisher in the GTE class, Rafael Russo.
Rafael, another race, another 3rd place, and another great battle. Talk us through that one.
Yeah, guys. First of all, congratulations for the broadcast. I was just watching the final laps while I was waiting. Pretty much intense race. Not so good quali. So started 2 and also didn't a good race start. and because of that, don't overtake me. He did a little aggressive movement, but it is what it is. So after that, I tried to follow Don and Michael. Don overtake Michael a few laps later. Another risky movement, but Michael is very clean in their lines. But and then I tried to follow Michael and Don, and to see what is going to be in the pit stops. And my JRT says to put some more fuel than I need to. They were expecting one lap more, and after the pit, I was more than a second behind Michael and tried to push harder because I saved a lot of tires. And the final laps were breathtaking. I just trying to make Michael mistakes. I'll never intend to do any risky movement to maybe mess up my race or Michael. So just trying to be close, trying to see if he makes some mistake. But he was flying the straight, so in very focused. But overall, that was an amazing race, breathtaking. We almost blinking during the laps, so it was really good. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I can tell you, we enjoyed watching it and calling it. Looking ahead to the next race, we're headed to Road America. Obviously, a little bit more of a draft-centric track. Do you think that's going to be enough to change up the order in the top three?
Well, I hope so. I'm tired to be the third. But yeah, Road America is a track where there's a lot of draft, and usually Ferrari is good at draft. But after the BOP, we are losing a little bit of speed, especially in the draft. But let's see what I can do, and also my teammates. I hope we can have another great race just as this one.
Well, I can tell you one thing, man. We are going to be watching with bated breath. Congratulations on yet another third here. Anybody you'd like to thank tonight?
Thank you, guys, and just like to thank all my teammates who are practicing with me, and all the Brazilian guys who are watching, and you, of course, you and PRL for the broadcast and the organization. So, thank you all.
Thank you, Rafael. That was your third place in the GTE, Rafael Russo. And now Joe Peak has caught up with David Duino.
Yeah, unfortunately, David, it looked like it was a day of an expensive bill with Bondo tape. A couple of contacts in there. Let's start with the first incident right off the line. From your perspective, what happened between you and Cal Quinn?
It was a rough start to the race. It looked like Cal Quinn had to check up heavily for his teammate ahead. And I was not expecting a checkup 10 car lengths ahead. I had nowhere I could really go. It's unfortunate because that gave me damage right off the get-go. And when you're in a car that relies so much on front aero, it's just there's nothing you can do. The car then understeers like crazy and it's just slow. It's unfortunate, but it was just a rough start to the race.
Gosh, I mean, between that and the contact and damage that you had from the second incident, did it feel like you were swimming upstream?
Oh yeah, it was definitely a fishy night. It seemed to be one thing after another. It was just being slow out of corners and through corners kind of leaves you just kind of vulnerable in the straightaways, and it was hard to keep up. And I felt like I could at least keep maybe a top 5, and ultimately seems like I did, thankfully. But yeah, it was a rough night. I'm not quite sure what happened on the second incident. I've yet to really go back and look, but yeah, it was a rough night.
Well, considering that you managed to finish on the podium last time, do you think that you can maybe keep more of those up in future rounds and make a challenge for the championship overall, or are you just taking this at a race at a time?
Right now, I'm just focusing race at a time. I'm still developing in this car. I'm having great support of my teammate Stacy, as well as the rest of the guys on Vector by RSR and the rest of the guys in RSR. But right now, it's just a race at a time. There's a lot of things still moving about, still trying to find the comfort zone. Our sponsor, Butt Kicker, really helping us out. But it's definitely a race at a time type of deal right now.
Well, thank you for giving us a lot of excitement and some onboard views. Hopefully things go a little smoother next week.
Yeah, hopefully so.
That was David Duino, who finished 5th today, and it looks like we've finished up our interview. So we are going to close out by thanking the sponsors for this series. Of course, as we mentioned before, Simulation Motorsports Affinity can be found at SIMMSA.net if you want to get involved with the world of sim racing. And of course, the longtime sponsor for PRL, NinjaTrader, is found at simply NinjaTrader.com. And we just heard it mentioned by David Duino. For all of your sim rig needs, go to thebuttkicker.com to check out their products. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, DJ, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com, or you can check out our social media through the outlets listed at the bottom of the screen. If you'd like to support our channel, check out the merchandise store at gsrc.storeenvy.com. We keep a link in the description below. While you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to GSRC so you don't miss a moment on the channel. Next race will be Road America, Tuesday, April 6th at 9 p.m. Eastern, but we have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen. So check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.